Naki Touron-Fais was born in Laodicea, Greece in 1926. Her parents, Ella, Abraham, and Ravika Touron, had 3 young children, Haim, Dora, and Naki, who was the youngest. They were a respectable family, comfortable but not wealthy. In Laodicea, her family that Ella lived in Exi-Jormir, which is where Jewish people lived at the time. Jewish and Christian families did not have much social interaction, but young people, especially in high school, formed close relationships. But on October 28, 1948, Italy declared war on Greece. Young men, including Jews, were drafted and sent to war. Laodicea, the base of major military installations, was heavily bombed. Naki's father decided that it was not safe for them to stay there anymore, so Naki's family moved to a nearby village of Sikorian. Naki's extended family and newly married sister Dora, along with her husband, Pepos Samaris, and his family went to the village of Azista, north of Laodicea in the Mount Pelion area. The Samaris were from Volos, about 40 miles north of Laodicea. The Germans didn't go to Azista because the non-paved roads didn't allow their vehicles to go through. Because of this, there was a big resistance there called EAM, or called the National Liberation Front. The EAM was a movement to help all Jewish people. Many people joined the resistance, Jew and non-Jew. Naki was 17 when she joined the active youth movement. Some people in the resistance fought the Germans financially and some directly. On March 24, 1944, Naki decided to leave Azista and go back to Laodicea so that she could go see her doctor for some acne treatment she needed. Naki's mother didn't want her to go, but she kept insisting, and finally Naki's mother allowed her to go. During her trip back to Laodicea, Naki had the time of her life, having nostalgic memories and meeting old friends again. When she went back to her house, she slept in the storage room. The Germans began searching the neighborhood and arresting Jews. Because Naki was not registered, the Germans didn't know she was in the house, so they passed it. But one of the people who lived in the house, Naki's former high school teacher, Nitsuko Naki, opened a window and asked one of the Germans through the interpreter what's going on. The Germans said that they were searching for Jews. When Nitsa heard this, she exposed Naki's location. After the Germans found out about this, Naki was caught still wearing her nightgown. When Naki found out about Nitsa and her betrayal, she kept asking questions why. Surprisingly, after this, she went back to Vizista with the Germans. After Naki told what had happened to her to the partisans, they offered to kill her, but Naki said no. Despite Naki being angry, she knew that she had a 2-year-old daughter. The Germans rounded up about 200 people from Laodicea. Later that same day, 1,000 other Jews from other close-by towns were also caught. The next day, another 1,500 people arrived from Lithuania. The camp was an old warehouse on the outskirts of Laodicea. The conditions were bad, but nothing compared to the concentration camps. The food was okay. Naki and other Jews were sleeping on cement floors. All the adults were scared and concerned for their future, but the young people didn't realize the situation they were in. On the second day, they ordered us to line up and give all our valuables away. The interpreter made it very clear that if they find anything hidden, they will kill you. Naki gave away her small ring. After the third day under German command, Naki saw her cousin Nisam Begas and the rest of the family. Fortunately, Nisam and the others slept at a Christian friend's house so they weren't captured. Later that same day, Nisam came back to see Naki and told her a crazy idea to convince the guards that she wasn't actually Jewish but a Christian seamstress working at a Jewish house and that they took her by accident. Naki thought about it and said it was a good idea, but before Naki executed the idea, Naki told one of her friends who was also caught, Julia Russo, and convinced her to do it together. Julia and Naki needed some time to verify the story, so they found a brave man named Abraham Sasson who was willing to go with the story. Next day, Naki and Julia went to the German commander's office and pleaded and cried that they took them by accident. The commander didn't believe them, but Naki and Julie were persistent and kept asking and coming back every day. After 3 days trying to convince the commander, he finally took Naki and Julie to their headquarters in Laodicea and put them in separate rooms and gave them good food. Naki realized that the commander had a crush on Julie and would keep staring at her. Naki knew that this could help their case. Soon after, one of the German soldiers told Naki and Julie that they would be questioned tomorrow and that they'll go back to camp. Naki was ecstatic to hear the news, so much that she even had the audacity to ask one of the German soldiers to give back her ring. Right after, Naki said that she instantly regretted it. Thankfully, the soldier, on the other hand, didn't take it that harshly, and Naki was given a ring found in some drawer. The next morning, Naki and Julie went into investigation. They were both sent into different rooms and questioned on what had happened in their past life. Naki was calm, cool, and collective. Naki imagined one of her Christian friends' lives and recreated those thoughts into her own fake life that she told. Julie, on the other hand, was a mess. Her story didn't add up. The whole time she was freaking out and crying. After their interrogation, Julie was sent back to the camp because she was a scheming Jew and believed that Naki was not Jewish, but Naki helped her. A Jew tried to escape. They were going to punish her but didn't know what to do with her yet. Naki moved into a jail, but really it was a big house in Volos. Naki's cell was the kitchen. The next day, the guards came and shoved Naki out into the yard. She thought that they were going to shoot her, but then she saw other people walking in a circle. That was daily exercise. They could not talk freely to each other, but could exchange some words every time they came across each other. Day 3, German soldiers came to Naki's cell. They were looking at her up and down very intensely, and they were talking to each other. At first, Naki did not know what they were about to do, but Naki got the idea that they had been involved in the capturing of the Jews in Volos, and they came to see if they remembered her. Naki started to plead to them if they remembered her and to Ella, and surprisingly, after a while, somehow Naki convinced them. They nodded their heads in agreement and left. Naki stayed there for 15 days without having any idea what they would do to her, but in the next morning she was let out free. They gave Naki some money to go back home and told her that this should be a lesson to never help the Jews anymore. Naki was happy, but she didn't know where to go. Naki decided to go to Dr. Tizana's house to return some blankets they gave her and tell her how much they helped her. But while going there, some other German guards saw her and thought that she was giving out secret messages, so they arrested her again. After telling what just happened to the guards, they let her go. Naki for a while had a breakdown, but after that, Naki decided to go into a train and headed miles to a village close to Vizista. When she arrived back to Vizista, people were looking at her like a ghost. Her cousins and her family were trying to find information about her, but when Naki told what happened to her in her story, they thought it was impossible. Naki's mother was the last to know of her return. When she saw Naki, she fainted, thinking that she had been lost forever. Naki later said, "Who said there's no God? I know better. There is one and he wanted me to live." When Naki was liberated, Naki's brother Haim rushed back to their house and saw Nita. She thought Naki was in a concentration camp and possibly had perished. She offered her deep sorrows and condolences. When Haim told her that Naki was alive, she pretended to be elated, but when he confronted her with the truth and mentioned that the partisans wanted to kill her as punishment, she disappeared and was never seen again. Julie and her whole family had been taken into concentration camps, and they were all perished except for her. Although she had survived the concentration camp, she died on her way back home after liberation. Many other Jews died from the variety of elements after the liberation. In 1947, Naki married Touron-Fais, also from Larissia, and they had a wonderful, happy life together. Naki and her husband had 2 daughters, Dali in 1947 and Rivka in 1952. They both now have their own families and live in Athens. Naki now has 9 grandchildren. When Naki got married, she gave the German ring to her husband Solon, and he never wore it. After liberation, Naki's life had some up and downs, but overall stuck together with her family and stayed strong and was thankful to be alive. Naki's Holocaust story will always be remembered for her resilience and her bravery to never give up.